everyone, welcome to an analysis of dance, where we discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard Hot Dance charts in immaculate detail, with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. Okay, this is now just getting ridiculous. We're now on the second week in a row where we've had over 8 debuts apiece, and with this week was just nuts across the board. I mean, yes, we may have had less debuts last week, but combine that with the big returns and the fact that the charts are just completely all over the place at the moment, yeah, this week felt even busier, and thankfully was a lot easier to manage and considerably better, but yeah, we'll get to that later on. And of course, that starts with our new number one that I called last week, Illusion by Dua Lipa. Not only is this now the biggest jump in the history of hot dance charts, it's also the biggest jump to number one, and now has given Dua Lipa the tied record for the most amount of number ones on the chart by a female artist with 3. And given the rate that Radical Optimism is going in terms of its momentum, I can see her getting another one off that album soon, and even if I don't see this one lasting, considering it's only here off of huge streaming and some decent radio to start off with, I do expect it's going to stick around for a fair amount of time, especially considering it's getting a natural push on radio. And of course, alongside that, Dua Lipa takes up the entire top 3, the first time that a single artist has done this since Drake in 2022, and the first female artist to ever do this. Great. With Houdini at number 2, where the radio is rotating this out fast, but it has enough residual momentum there and some decent streaming to keep it up, and Training Season at number 3, which I don't see rebounding anytime soon, especially considering it's getting rotated out on radio now because of the new single, and I don't see it lasting much longer. But man, if you want a sign of how great this top 5 is, look at the remaining 2 songs here, which only got knocked down because of Illusion jumping to number 1, with Yes and by Ariana Grande at number 4, where it's got absolutely no radio, but streaming is somehow managing to hold up with this one out of nowhere, and Back on 74 by Jungle at number 5, which is the complete opposite case, where it had no radio to speak of, and streaming might have taken a little bit of a hit for the time being. I mean, considering Taylor Swift is coming next week, that's not surprising at all. But now onto something that I quite frankly did not expect would actually happen. I Don't Want to Wait by David Guetta and Run Republic surged up to number 6 off the debut last week. Now, it's not got any sort of radio momentum behind it, it's only here because of streaming, which is interesting considering how many people don't like that song. But with how it's going around the world, I expect this to be another big hit for him. And I'm sorry, I still really like the song. I'm not apologizing for that either. And on the topic of surprises, Strangers by Kenya Grace is at number 7, where it's somehow rebounded on streaming and is actually sticking around, which, considering I thought this was going to be gone this week, that's actually pretty impressive. But of course, it also may be because Murder on the Dance Floor by Sophie Ellis-Bextor is starting to exit naturally at number 8, where streaming is rotating out fast with this one and radio has long given up on this. The fact that it stuck around as long as it did for a Saltburn related classic song from the 2000s, that is really impressive. And hey, I can't complain that it's dragged down Contigo by Karol G and Tiesto to number 9, where the streaming may still be decent with this, but it's rotating out fast. I don't see this lasting much longer, thank Christ. And on that note, Whatever by Kygo and Ava Max to number 10, no one cares, let's move on. But just like last week, you think the high number of debuts and returns meant that we actually saw a lot of big songs get knocked off, but given that the charts are relatively new at the moment in terms of songs and there's nothing that really is victim to recurrent rules, we actually saw some lower charting songs that might just be barely missing the year-end list, and honestly, it's a shame. I like the majority of these. I mean, the only exception is My House by Beyonce, which didn't even last 20 weeks, which is really bad for a song like this. I thought it would actually stick around considering it debuted at number 2. But along with that, we also saw Echo by Rascal, Ripia and Julia Klein exit, as well as You and Me Revo remix by Disclosure and Elisa Doolittle. Okay, I'm surprised that one stuck around as long as it did. And For Moran Bell Like Next Time by Contrause. Unfortunately, that one looks like it's going to underperform too. Just wonderful. Although shout out to I've Been in Love by Jungle and Channel Trays, which really stuck around longer than I expected, considering it's not even the big song from Jungle that's actually blowing up around the world. I mean, it seems to get a lot of the momentum off of Back on 74's success, which means I can actually see it possibly coming back soon if that song actually rebounds. So yeah, not complaining there. But once again, the falls made up for this in spades, and really a lot of these were not that surprising for me. I mean, you had your continued collapses of Tuka Donka by Curse Devil, DJ Fuck You and Scored at 41, which will likely be gone next week, having secured its year-end list spot, as well as Lil Freak by Bibi No May, just utterly crushing the 40. It looks like it's not sticking around either. Great! We also saw the big losses for H+3 plus Poison 7 LUC JLo OT6 by Vibe out of 37. Wow, that's getting rotated out quickly. And Dyson Roll by Odotari falling to 30. People are really not getting on board with this this one. Shame, I actually like it. It's really interesting that it's not sticking around that well at all. Then you had your debuts falling back like My Oh My by Ava Max at 21 and Karma by Jojo Siwa at 11. This is going to make the year-end list fucking wonderful. But finally, outside that, we had the outliers in the top 25 that just saw a lot of considerable knocks from all the big movements and debuts above them, and these are pretty bad across the board. I mean, we had Insane by Black Griffin and Basic at 22, which I'm surprised it stuck around as long as it did, but along with that, we saw The Welcome Follow Faster and Harder by Barely Human at 25, and Alter Ego by Doichi and JT somehow still high up at 20. Can this not be a hit, please? Finally, that leaves one outlier, Staying It by Fred Again, Lil Yachty and Over Mono falling all the way down to 45. And look, I don't see this sticking around, considering it got a lot of its momentum taken away by USB's new songs. I'm not surprised that it started to fall back, although I do see this actually having a chance of rebounding if it gets any sort of stability, which it has before. And man, it's dangerously close to missing that year-end list. I would not be very happy if that misses it. But again, with all that, it's weird that we actually had jumps and comebacks at all. And I mean, in the latter category, I was genuinely surprised how much I really liked all three comebacks this week. I mean, the weakest is probably Never Be Lonely by Jax Jones and Zoe. We're surging back up to 27, and honestly, it's still a really solid song, so I can't complain there. But we also had Sip and Yak by Clooney, somehow coming back to 46 on this week of all weeks. Okay, sure, why not? And most shockingly for me, Carry You by Martin Garrix and Third Party featuring Oaks and Declan J. Donovan is back at 42, and it doesn't even have any sort of remix boost behind it. This seems to be getting organic momentum. I mean, I can't complain. It's an excellent song. I hope it sticks around. Thank God the comebacks are so good because, oh my god, have you seen these jumps? I mean, outside of Illusion's big 40+ jump at number 1, the other two are not good songs whatsoever. With These Words by Badger and Natasha Bedingfield somehow surging up to 13, can we not make this a hit? And most annoyingly for me, The Sound of Silence Sorrow remix by Disturbed is at 19. This is gonna stick around too and become a smash hit. Just freaking wonderful. Especially when you get to our really goddamn good list of debuts. Starting off shockingly with number 50, Don't You Cry by Sunday Scaries and Discrete.
And when you fall asleep, not tomorrow's a new day.
I always get really caught off guard whenever I see Sunday Scaries chart here. I mean, these guys have only charted 3 times on Hot Dance as of this week, but still, that's 3 more than I expected. And honestly, as much as I really like chill like that, I wasn't expecting anything else from them to actually cross over here. That being said, I was curious how this new song would turn out, and can't be surprised that they actually went down the Stutter House route of all things. With that gorgeous atmosphere and the serene vocal samples that play off against a really hard-hitting bass line and some great percussion on the drops, as those wavering sims sound as great as ever. Honestly, I really got into this immediately. It's absolutely likable and the atmosphere is goddamn gorgeous. I was really surprised this came out of Sunday Scaries of all people. I mean, I will admit that the vocal samples do get a bit screechy at points, especially on the verses, but by the time that beautiful synth arrangement comes back in, the song just wins me back over time and time again, and yeah, this is legitimately great. I mean, I don't see this having the same run as Chill like that, considering Stutter House has had a very inconsistent run on Hot Dance charts as is, but if this is able to be a surprising minor hit, I would definitely not complain because it's really damn good. Number 49, Feeling Good by Hypaton and David Guetta.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel.
And on the topic of surprises, it's strange that Hypaton is coming back to the charts with this, considering their remix of Be My Lover by La Bouche that came out last year did not stick around much at all. But given the David Guetta stimulus package has worked for other artists like Galantis, I'm not surprised that this song has managed to cross over at the very bottom, if only for just 1 week. And most shockingly, again, I'm really impressed. I really liked it. I mean, it's exactly what I expected out of these two, going for more of the future rave approach with some goddamn great synths that create create a really serene atmosphere yet again, although this one's focused more around traditional male vocals as opposed to pitch-shifted vocal samples, and honestly I might actually like it even more. Hell, the drops contain the same gorgeous synth production and keep everything intact from the verses, and that's honestly really surprising considering Guetta likes to go off the rails with these future rave collabs, especially with the collabs with Morton that just haven't been all that good and have ruined some really great build-ups on some really underwhelming drops. The fact that this is genuinely working for me at all is really surprising. I mean, between this and his incredible live show, which you've got to admit is genuinely great from a visual perspective, it seems like future rave is something that David Guetta really enjoys making, and when these collabs consistently chart, I'm honestly surprised that he hasn't done more of them. And yeah, this is no exception. This is a really surprisingly good song. Hell, I might like it just as much as Don't You Cry, and that's genuinely shocking to me. Number 48, Eyes on Me by Asteria.
Eyes on me, baby. I got what you need, baby. Eyes on me, I got what you need. Eyes on me, eyes on me.
Okay, look, they can't all be winners here, and honestly with this one I was really not looking forward to it. I mean, I already wasn't huge on What You Want, and that song did not really go anywhere at all. Honestly, I'm surprised it underperformed as much as it did, but now we got the new song by Asteria, and wow, this is way worse. For starters, this goes for the same sort of Daria core approach that What You Want had, as well as the majority of Odotari's recent work, and that's not honestly a good thing at all, considering the blaring synths that peak in the mix and sound really awful against the flat percussion, and of course the forced tempo change at the beginning to try and make this blow up on TikTok. Seriously, even What You Want didn't do that. This is blatant. But the worst part of this song is surprisingly Asteria's vocals. I mean, I like his voice on What You Want because he at least has some personality, but instead of doing that here, he throws that away in favor of pitch shifting his vocals down to an annoying register where his bass frequencies just really get smothered out by the mix and sound really grainy to boot. Combine that with a really obnoxious hook yet again, as well as lyrics that are genuinely underdeveloped and a runtime that's way too short for its own good. Yeah, this is a complete waste of time for me. Honestly, any sort of goodwill I had on Asteria has been completely gone with this. This sucks. Skip it. Number 39, Weak by Vintage Culture, Maverick, Sabre, and Tom Breu.
Let me hear you go. Baby, I'm weak. Baby, it's time. Let me hear you go. Tell me where we go. Let me hear you go.
Oh wow, I did not expect that we'd be getting a Vintage Culture song charting in 2024. I mean, the last time that this guy charted was back in 2020, with one of his songs being entirely club boosted and the other having the Tiesto stimulus package and not sticking around whatsoever, which is a shame because both songs are absolutely great and deserved way better than that. But surprisingly, now we get this, one of the lead singles for his new upcoming album, and a song that's been out for a few months now that's been blowing up around the world, so he's actually been getting some genuine momentum on his own, which is really promising. And thank God that the song itself is absolutely excellent. In fact, this might be one of Vintage Culture's best songs to date. The tight piano against the house groove with some really heavy bass production, especially against the indie-esque vocals of Maverick Sabre that really build up for an anthemic hook where the backing vocals really do handle a lot of really great vocal melodies and harmonies to boot, alongside some of the best integration of wubs and the most satisfying bass production you can get. Honestly though, this song reminds me a lot more of 2016 era's You, mainly in the darker nocturnal vibe, the consistent driving momentum, and the focus on bass production as opposed to a general melody. And in this case, it would fit right at home on Generation Y, and that is a compliment because it's as good as the best songs on that album for me. So yeah, absolutely great. And the fact that it took 3 months for this to actually chart here means that I have the really sinking feeling that this might not stick around, but if it does, I would not complain at all because it's an absolutely fantastic song and I would really like it to be a hit. Number 38, It's Not Right But It's Okay by Mr. Belt and Wezol.
Make it anyway. Pack your bags up and leave, and don't you dare come running back to me.
Okay, I shouldn't really be surprised that this actually charted here. It's been blowing up around Europe considerably by this Dutch duo, and of course that recognizable sample of Whitney Houston's song of the same name means that the American public was gonna get behind this eventually. So it charted here, and honestly I quite enjoy this one. Yes, the vocals are mixed weirdly on the verses where the offbeat parts of the original song aren't really altered, and they do sound a bit awkward over this track, but man, that hook is a monster, and I absolutely get why this duo decides to remix it. It's incredibly catchy catchy, and it also is a really empowering message for anyone who's going through a breakup. I get why people like it. Especially when it plays off the faster tech house beat with those beepy synths and the really hard hitting bass line. Once again, it's an absolutely fantastic side of tech house that I'm glad is getting momentum here. But the thing that might hold this back for me are actually the lyrics of the original song, which I've always been very mixed on. I mean, when you start out assuming that the guy is cheating just because he goes out with his boys to have dinner and only 2 of them actually pay for dinner, I mean, first off, that's very presumptuous in a way that I don't think really works with the song. And even if it makes sense later on that the guy is actually cheating in this regard, and the second verse really does help, the fact that I had to think that hard about it in this particular context made it feel a bit awkward for me, especially when you get to the hook where she's openly accepting the cheating but just wanting to throw him out regardless. Still, really good groove, really great hook, and even if the vocals do throw me off a little bit from this one, it is still a really solid song. I get why it's blown up around the world. Good track. Number 36, Eat the Bass by John Summit.
I just need to eat the bass, so let me dance. I wanna feel your body, don't want romance. I just need to eat the bass, so let me dance.
Well, it seems like John Summit is going to get another comfortably massive hit with Shiver, so I'm not exactly surprised that alongside that he's gone back to more of his club-leading roots that made him popular to begin with. I mean, especially considering some of his earliest charting songs were through Defected, including his remix of Deep End. I'm not surprised he went back to this well. It's just a shame though that in this case, this is probably the weakest song he's charted since Deep End, and I was not really a fan of this one. I mean, it's not bad at all. It does slap pretty hard, and the buzzy synths in the middle do sound quite good, but besides that, I was not on board with these drops whatsoever. The vocal samples are in that weird spot of being way too bass heavy but not powerful enough to carry the groove, and I mean the bass in general just does not sound good on this track whatsoever. And the lack of melody across this whole song just really makes it drag on. It's very well produced and all that, but really when you don't have much to cling on to or interesting production regardless, I'm not exactly huge on this one. Look, I really like John Summit. I've been really getting on board with the majority of the songs that he's charted, but for me, this is a bit of a miss. I'd pass on it. Number 34, BerwynGesaffNeighbours by Fred Again, BERWYN, and Gesaffelstein.
So used to loss, loving you feel so. Who else can we expect to be true to us?
Honestly, I'm not surprised that USB didn't get a second revival this week, and really it's all down to the fact that it's been out for years now, and really it's only got 2 new songs, with this being the one that's getting pushed by Fred Again the most and having Gesaffelstein, so I mean it was gonna chart regardless. But here's the song, and okay, this is barely even a Fred Again song at all. In fact, it's more of a mashup than anything. Combine the vocals of BerWYN off of this track, BerWYN All I Got Is You from Actual Life 3, alongside the classic Gesaffelstein song Destinations from his 2013 album Aleph. Now it's a really fucking good mashup considering the spoken word of BerWYN really does flow well over this production, especially considering the grimy and dark production of Destination really does work well in highlighting the intensity of this track, and I really like how the vocals get way more manic and intense by the end, but then the song just stops, just like that. I mean, it's barely over 2 minutes, and they just throw in this random house beat at the end that doesn't transition into anything, not even into Stay In It, which is next on the album. It's kind of just out of place and really slapdash. Bizarre, given Fred Again is usually really good with structuring, but man, this should have been much longer. Outside of that though, this is a really damn good mashup, although it's not my favorite of the 2 new songs, considering It's Not Real is way better, and it's a shame that that one didn't chart, but yeah, besides that, really good song, not great though. Number 18, Karma's a Bitch by Brit Smith.
I swear I did it all for fun and it meant nothing. It never happened. It was a secret. Like when a tree falls in the forest, no one hears it.
Okay, so quite frankly, given JoJo Siwa's absolutely horrible version of this song was able to debut in the top 5, part of me was really curious on whether the original song from Brit Smith would actually chart here, considering she released it officially just recently. But for those of you who don't know, Brit Smith was a pop singer who signed to Interscope in the early 2010s, with this song being produced by none other than Timbaland and Rock Mafia of all people. It was actually planned to be her debut single, but after a while it got scrapped in favor of a song that considerably underperformed perform so badly to the point where she just decided to leave the music industry entirely. But after JoJo Siwa's blatant lesbian babe music video blew up, a lot of the people checked on TikTok to see where the original song was, especially considering promotional videos of this song dated all the way back to 2012 and 2013 on Vimeo, if anyone remembers that. So those promotional videos blew up so much that Brit Smith released a song recently, especially considering it went viral on TikTok on its own as well. And given that she's independent, she has absolutely no problem releasing it on TikTok, and here we are now, it's charting. And man, it's really telling how considerably better this version is. On one hand, it's still got the lyrical problems of JoJo Siwa's version, mainly in being an immature and petty kiss-off anthem that doesn't really work. Although it is telling that this version goes for a much more mature approach and doesn't throw in the forced F-bomb on the hook, and really sounds a lot better as a result, and it's way more mature in that regard. But the differences here are tenfold, mainly in that the production by Timbaland absolutely slaps and goes way harder than JoJo's version ever could. I mean, this sort of R&B sound was getting really tired out by that time, and I get why they didn't really release it, but nowadays with that sound being more in the nostalgia wave, I'm not surprised that they decided to keep the production the same way for this version. But the real difference in quality here comes in the vocalists, where Brit Smith is an absolutely way better singer than JoJo Siwa. I mean, she's not covered in all the awful layers of vocal effects that made JoJo Siwa's voice barely on key, and she has a considerable amount of personality and bite to her delivery, where I absolutely buy this more coming from her than from JoJo Siwa here. I mean, hey, if this is able to be a hit while JoJo's version absolutely continues to freefall, I would not complain at all, because this is considerably better. And finally, number 17, Pedro by Jaxomy, Agatino, Romero, and Raffaella, Carra. Another really unsurprising debut here, although this one is just kind of funny to me. So for context, these two producers are both German. They both worked together on this song that came out in March and really blew up because of a raccoon meme on TikTok. And yeah, I'm not making any of this up. And with this song sampling the song of the same name by Raffaella Carra, I'm not exactly surprised that it was able to be a thing, especially considering Jaxomy's profile has a lot of, let's just call them interesting remixes that may or may not be cursed as all hell, which is really funny though, because I actually really like this remix. I mean, the vocals are just absolutely ridiculous, and the switch from traditional Latin pop to more of a hardcore sound was really jarring on first listen and caught me off guard in the best way. But besides that, this production absolutely slaps, with the very hard-hitting kicks against a really catchy vocal line, and the trumpets that flow around on those drops just really adding to the Spanish vibe that this is going for. I get why they remixed this particular version and made it sound the way it did. It really references the original Spanish vibe quite well. I mean, it's a sort of song that's absolutely going to be a club staple in the future. Hell, I kind of knew that this was going to blow up pretty considerably, considering my friends in real life who don't even listen to electronic music were blasting this in the car, and yeah, it works so well in that setting. And look, I totally get why people don't like this. I get that it's going to get really annoying over time, especially with that hook being as infectious and earwormy as it is, but for the time being, I really like this song, and I'm really excited to see how big it can get. But yeah, wow, absolutely great week. And outside of the obvious worst for Eyes on Me by Asteria, the Dishonourable runner-up, it's gonna go to Eat the Bass by John Summit for being disappointing, but otherwise it's not that bad a song. It wouldn't get it on any other week. But for best though, oh my god, I've got a lot to choose from here. I mean, for the best, I'm probably gonna have to give it to Week by Vintage Culture, Maverick, Sabre, and Tom Breu. But for the honourable runner-up, okay, fuck it. It's gonna be a tie between Don't You Cry by Sunday Scaries and Discrete and Feeling Good by Hypaton and David Guetta. Yeah, that one really surprised me. I'm really shocked how much I liked it. Next week though, there's the new Kygo song, which I can see being very divisive amongst his fan base. And besides that, considering how busy these past 2 weeks have been, I don't expect there to be any sort of calm down anytime soon. But yeah, stay tuned for that. And yeah, that's all for this episode of an analysis of dance. See you next time.